Hello, welcome to Cirrius Talk. I'm your host, Greg Banks. Today, I have Allie Nelson, Principal Solutions Engineer of Cirrius Solutions, and Tim Harting, our Chief Operating Officer. Allie is fresh off the trail from one of the largest user conferences in the world, Dreamforce. Today, Allie and Tim are discussing the highlights of DF25. Thanks for joining. Let's jump right in. All right, welcome to Cirrius Talk. Great to have on the show today, Tim and Allie. Allie, first-time guest. Great to have you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Greg. And so we're going to do a little bit different format today with our special guest here. So Allie is a principal solution engineer with our team. So what that means is her job is to help us craft technical solutions for clients and align the best technical solutions possible. And this year, she was able to attend Dreamforce on behalf of Cirrius Solutions and really take in all of the announcements and everything that was discussed there, all the exciting stuff, maybe some things as well of just maybe interesting signs of the times that became clear at Salesforce too. So we'll dive into all of that today. But yeah, Allie, welcome to the show. And I guess maybe just to start off, we'll go kind of item by item through different things that you found really impactful there, but maybe just give like the 10,000 foot view takeaway of like, what was the general vibe and kind of what was your high level takeaways from the week out at Dreamforce?
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Hello, my first time on. So going to Dreamforce this year, I think the biggest takeaway or the biggest feeling from the event overall was really that a lot of people are really wanting to get back to community and to get back to the environment of learning that the Trailblazer community and all events have been over the last, decade of time. So we have all been learning a lot about Agentforce and new features, and there's still just this huge hunger for continuing to learn and evolve knowledge about the platform. So I got to see a lot of people that I really love. I got to attend some sessions and learn about quite a few cool things that I think we'll talk about today. But really, it was that people are still hungry to learn more.
Yeah, I think that's something I noticed just hearing the feedback from you as well as just reading feedback from others from Dreamforce as well. Like, I think it's no denying over the last year, there's been a really big disruptive shift or change in Salesforce messaging and strategy with Agentforce. And I think natural to that then is people are afraid of or concerned of like, hey, does this mean there's going to be a change to, the base or the community that's really made Salesforce successful for the last 20, 25 years? And I think it's just now starting to kind of see those conversations start to bubble up a little bit. So you kind of shared your top announcements that you thought were going to be most impactful. One of the first ones that you called out when you came back and had discussions with our leadership team was MuleSoft Agent Fabric. And so we've talked maybe just a little bit about it a couple episodes ago on the show. We definitely haven't dove into it too much and the potential ramifications of it. So just kind of explain for the audience, what is MuleSoft Agent Fabric, or at least what is Salesforce touting that it's going to be? A pretty fresh announcement here, and kind of what's your take on it for how it's going to affect the space and provide value for customers?
Yeah, so MuleSoft Agent Fabric, it's a new tool that lives inside of MuleSoft, and ultimately it is an agent orchestrator. So we've all been, learning about agents on the Salesforce platform, but there are so many other platforms that have AI agents available as a tool. You can be building agents through ChatGPT, you can be building agents through Microsoft, and often, Salesforce agents can't do everything in other platforms. So people need to be using agents across their tech stack if they want to be effectively using AI in all parts of their business. And so MuleSoft Agent Fabric is designed to help you get control of all of the different agents you're using to both make sure that you have proper security in place for all of those agents, and also just to make sure that from an architecture perspective, you're structuring them in a way that's going to be sustainable and scalable for your future. So it allows you to do things like giving agents hierarchy. So you might have someone interact with a top level agent who then calls down to agents below it so that it can perform specific functions. And then it also has some security tools so that you can decide what data and what actions different agents have access to. And it does get really granular inside Agent Fabric, which I think is something that's going to be really, really important to many of our customers out there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good overview, super helpful. And yeah, I think this is one of the areas where Salesforce is really well positioned to just make a really good play on the space too, compared to Agentforce, for example. Like Salesforce, as we all know, like they don't have their own they're not one of the big 8 AI labs out there, right? So they're not developing their own LMs, et cetera. But what do they have? Like, with Data Cloud, now Data 360, with Customer 360, like they got the enterprise data and essentially the workflows and the brains of businesses. So Salesforce, I think, has a really compelling kind of pitch to also make themselves the hub for all your different agents. I think what a lot of enterprises are finding is you got to use the right agent framework and the right LLM and the right tools based on the use case. There's not like a one size fits all when it comes to AI agent tooling. And MuleSoft really kind of positions Salesforce in a really good spot to take advantage of that and centralize that effort to help this proliferation of technical debt and really make it a controlled process. At least that's kind of where I'm seeing a lot of potential customer value for it.
Absolutely. I think it's really a play to make sure that it's not all about just using Salesforce. It's about how Salesforce can play nice with the other tools that are part of your environment. Allows you to position things in a way that will make it really easy to use Salesforce within your current tech stack without having to make significant changes there.
Yeah. And I think documentation too showing it's not just a registry and central repository and control center for your agents, but also for your MCP servers. So think of your tools within your toolbox. And so you really got a good kind of repository registry and framework to manage all of your AI agents and MCP tools across your business, which I think really positions itself well for the next few years for a lot of enterprises. Very interesting. The next one that really stood out to me in terms of announcements that you highlighted to our leadership team as well, and I think it'd be useful to walk through for the audience, is Slack channel agents. And again, we've chatted about it a little bit on the podcast, not super in depth to this point. Maybe share what did Salesforce announce Slack channel agents are, what they could do for customers, and where we also see that feature or capability being positioned within the space.
Yeah, Slack channel agents, for me, I'm really interested in them because of the way that they help improve the actual day-to-day workflow of some team members. So I've seen a lot of customers of Salesforce who, in terms of adoption, we have people who are going to be in the platform all day, every day, and it's easy enough to train those users on what they're going to be doing in Salesforce. But then you also have users that I would call almost like demi users of Salesforce. They're folks who spend the majority of their day doing things like communicating internally on Slack. And I think, honestly, I might qualify as one of those people. I spend most of my day as a solutions engineer talking with folks internal to our organization. And I don't necessarily have to update our Salesforce often. That's, our AE's job. And so for a lot of these users, it can be tough to train yourselves properly on Salesforce and use, in this case, Slack and whatever other tools you might have to use. And so Slack channel agents, what they are at their core is an agent you can build that lives in Slack as its interface. When you're in Slack, you actually see them as a channel. So you can go to that channel to chat with an agent, and it's one-on-one. It doesn't show everybody's conversations with the agent. And that agent can interact with your Salesforce data because it is a part of Salesforce. So a great example is going to be on my end in a sales organization. I can go and talk to a Slack agent. I do not have to leave Slack where I'm already communicating with you, with Greg, with other team members, and I can give some updates that I've been working on for a customer demo. Those updates will go and update my opportunity automatically and add my notes, add any files that I link, add any field updates that I need to make, and I don't have to leave Slack to do it. This is especially helpful when you have a lot going on and switching between systems could confuse people, could potentially cause things like lost details and data. And so it's a great way to make sure that you are capturing information where it lives and then using agents to put that information where it needs to be.
Yeah, and I just see a lot of really good use cases for customers there. And, I think this just kind of is in line with Salesforce's larger push to make Slack like the operating system for your business, where users like interacting in a chat interface more often than they like clicking through a lot of different tabs, following a really complex, workflow within a CRM or within an ERP. So it's just a natural place to try to meet users where they're at from a user experience standpoint and push as many capabilities into that front-end chat interface, that Slack or Teams for that matter, or Discord. You just see a lot of businesses trying to move as many capabilities into those chat interfaces as possible for their sales users or their service users. This seems to really position Salesforce well for that.
Quick question on that front. Is this going to be browser only, or is this going to be mobile as well? I can just think back to conversations 10 years ago, training salespeople that, the idea of this is before Salesforce Mobile even really came out very big, but you go in, you meet with the client, you come out and you kind of want to brain dump some things really quick so that you can leave, get in the car, head to the next appointment, not lose that information. And they were just kind of almost dictating as a note that they could follow up and update the UI later. But is there a possibility this is going to happen via mobile, that I can open Slack mobile, right? And say,
Yes.
hey, go update this opportunity to this amount, this stage, and walk away, and the data physically got updated. So any downstream automation that notify people on, big deal alerts or deal close or whatever, all things that are going to happen. And I have the convenience of Slack just to talk as the front end.
Absolutely. So it's just a channel in Slack. It uses the same architecture. So it will be available in Slack mobile as well. And I really like what you said about kind of giving that stream of consciousness, because this really echoes what Salesforce, I think, was aiming for back in 2019 with Einstein Voice. The idea of leaving that meeting, using natural language to give updates into your phone. And obviously you can use voice to text, which I do often. And you can just say, just left a meeting with Tim. We talked about X, Y, and Z. And I think we're going to have a next step by Wednesday next week. And then the agent will be able to say, okay, we need to log that a meeting happened. We need to log a new next step with Wednesday's date next week. And it will make sure that, again, that barrier for entry to getting data in the system is as low as possible.
That's amazing. I can hear salespeople celebrating.
Yep. I think of one other interesting thing, maybe a potential tension point coming in down the road is, one of the other major announcements, and something that we covered on our last episode, was the announcement of the OpenAI Salesforce partnership and having ChatGPT-in-Slack. Kind of off topic here a little bit, but I think relevant to how do we see ChatGPT-in-Slack in like channel agents and all of these different agent tooling that Salesforce pushing. Like, how do we see that playing out long term? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a big point of confusion with a lot of people where we're announcing these agents that do ultimately use ChatGPT on the back end that are connected to your Salesforce data, and then also introducing ChatGPT inside Slack. I think there's going to be some confusion on which tool do I use and when, because one of them is securely connected to your Salesforce org that goes through the Einstein Trust Layer when it sends information, and one of them isn't. One of them is just ChatGPT, the wide world of the internet. There's no zero retention model there. And so,
depending on the plan you're on with OpenAI, right?
I have some concerns and I have some questions. And I think in terms of like just the end users, the people that we're building for, I want to make sure that it's really clear what they need to do and who they need to ask and what AI to talk to. And that's a lot of options.
Yeah, I agree. Seems like a lot of options are being presented. That also means a lot of things that somebody looking at which way to go are things that they'd have to work through, some big questions to answer. So I definitely see that being a topic of discussion down the road for sure with a lot of our clients that we're working with. So yeah, so one other thing that I wanted to touch on was kind of your just observations on consultancy presence at Dreamforce. And the reason I want to touch on this, it was interesting that you brought it up, but then just following social media reactions on LinkedIn and other platforms since Dreamforce as well, there's been a lot of other voices within the Salesforce customer and partner space that have brought up similar thoughts. So what was your take on the consultancy presence at Dreamforce? And so here we're talking about consultants that help implement or do managed services or work with customers to, get value out of their Salesforce investments. What'd you see there?
So normally when I walk around that campground area, that big sponsor zone that has booths and everything, every year I make sure to take some time to walk around. I visit some of the partners that we work with, third-party apps, and say hi. And usually there are quite a few booths from a variety of consulting firms of a variety of sizes, all the way from Big Four down to firms that are more our size. And this year, walking around, there was a distinct lack of that. Even the Big Four, I only remember seeing one actual booth in that sponsor area for them. I think the others sponsored lounges or other side things, not necessarily a larger presence. And then I only saw one other consulting firm that had a booth. And I found that really, really interesting because we had explored potentially having a booth at Dreamforce and what are the costs involved and what would that mean for us. And knowing the conversations that we've had, is it going to be worth the ROI ultimately? I'm wondering how those conversations have gone at other firms who were not there, who maybe I have seen in the past. So it was very notably different walking around. And usually that area is like 85-90% sponsor booths, and then Salesforce will have one or two large activations kind of in the middle. And this year it was probably 40% Salesforce activations and 60% sponsor booths. So a very different mix of sponsors there.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And I think, the statistics I've seen thrown around on like LinkedIn is, it's been touted that there's been a 25% growth year over year in number of Salesforce partners, yet Salesforce growth has been in the single digits. So, roughly 8%. And there's been some pretty major acquisitions of larger Salesforce partners getting consumed into even larger like Big Four partners. So kind of what all that says is that if you do the basic back of the napkin math there, things are maybe in the time of disruption here where there is a lot of change happening in the space. Things are maybe a little bit tight on the consultancy side, or maybe a lot of firms are taking a wait and see approach of like how a lot of these announcements are going to shake out. Because I think there's been a lot of, part of what was discussed is vibe coding and using Agentforce within setup to help with your configuration. And so, it's really interesting to see that shift was maybe as dramatic in person as it actually was. I think a lot of people maybe expected there maybe to be a slightly less consultant presence, but maybe not as dramatic as it actually was. And it's got a lot of people talking, which is pretty interesting.
Absolutely. Definitely a little different. And, I think that there's also something to be said for really discovering as a customer, if I'm going to be going to booths, will that impact my decision on consultants if they have a booth, or if I meet them through something else like an event or, a happy hour that they've sponsored and that kind of thing. So I think as a consulting firm, it's a really interesting time to figure out what is the best way to connect with our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And all right, so those were some of the ones that I really want to cover today. I guess handing over to you, Allie, is there maybe anything else that we didn't cover that you would want to call out that was a key takeaway for you, either as it relates to customers or to just the Salesforce space in general?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is the need for people to continue to collaborate on opportunities to teach each other about what we're doing on the platform. I think the biggest thing with, like you said earlier, Agentforce all the time, is that yes, while some companies will have the dollars to invest in Agentforce, while some companies with solo admins can afford to send that person to Dreamforce to learn about Agentforce, I think that there's going to be a lot of companies who are not ready to switch to Agentforce, who don't have the funding to invest in it, who still need to know how to troubleshoot flows, and who still need to know some of those features that are 18 years old in Service Cloud, and how does email to case thread your emails together in one case, things like that. I think all of that knowledge is living in Trailblazers, and there's still this big need to make sure that we're doing what we can to share our knowledge, share our skills. How do we continue to teach each other and help each other learn and grow on the platform when the platform is really focused on AI and not necessarily focused on some of those core features right now?
Yeah, I mean, it was a 25-year journey to get the existing Salesforce customer base into the cloud. And so it's going to be a long journey to transition in this AI space as well, to be leveraging AI tools. And if we don't go back, and if the ecosystem isn't staying strong in its roots of enabling people and engaging with people, it's going to be a rougher transition for sure than it possibly should or need to be. So yeah, I think that's a takeaway that a lot of people definitely had from this Dreamforce. And again, too, like, I think businesses really need to wake up to and really answer for themselves, like, why are they transitioning, leveraging AI? Is it to be efficient, or is it to boost productivity for their people and allowing more opportunities and more time for people to have more people engagement? And so I think just talking through enablement of partners and customers is one slice of that conversation, and something that really needs to be leaned into for sure. So yeah, no, great insights. It's I definitely can see the impacts of a lot of the different announcements that were made, and really excited to see how it drives value for customers, and definitely some big questions being tackled within the Salesforce ecosystem as a whole, and a conversation that'll definitely keep moving forward over the next several months. So thank you very much, Allie and Greg, for talking through this, and yeah, really exciting to see where these announcements actually go. Like we always know with every Dreamforce, it's always hard to tell hype from actual results, and so excited to see what actually starts translating into results for customers here.
Yeah, indeed. Always on the back end of this is the world tour, where they take a smaller version of this and they go big city to big city, kind of reiterating the message and maybe even tweaking it a little bit. So again, the news cycle is so very fast on this. It's going to be fun to watch over the next few weeks to see how that looks when it comes to a city near you. So Allie, again, thank you for making the time for us today and giving us the highlight from boots on the ground. Good to have you both here today. Appreciate it. You have a wonderful day.
Yeah, have a good one. Thank you.
Good day.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Special thanks to Allie and Tim for joining us today. Dreamforce has always been a time of big news and excitement, and this year was no exception. That said, it's always great to hear from someone who was on the ground for the experience. We'd love to have you back next time as we dive deeper into the world of tech consulting and spotlight the latest news shaping the Salesforce ecosystem. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an update. Got questions or ideas for a future episode? Drop us a line at CirriusTalk@CirriusSolutions.com. You'll find the address in the show notes. Until next time, keep innovating.